Hello, my name is Olia and my partner's name is Tanya. Today I would like to present you our project, Heuristic Evaluation Project. Okay, so let's move forward. Today on our agenda we have description of our project. We'll have a section with research and findings. We'll talk about our design, and we will also talk about testing and evaluating our project. And of course, at the end, we'll talk about results and conclusions. Okay, so in this project, our goal is actually to design an email system that would accommodate users with motor and visual impairments. Current email systems on the market do not actually have that available to them. And along with the project with evaluating our system, we will also have a report, and in the report we'll be sharing our findings from the heuristic evaluation of our designed email system, as well as the research that was conducted before the designs were made. Our first goal of the project was to find publications that were actually relevant and applicable to our designs. And as a result, we found a few articles that helped us to understand what are motor and visual impairments and how challenging it is for individuals with motor and visual impairments to actually use current email systems. Later, we utilized a few ideas researched in these articles, such as using voice-based commands or assigning certain mouse clicks to a screen action, for example. We also learned a few important details about visual impairments and motor impairments, for example, that there are different types of those. All right. Next, we'll talk about research and findings. During our research that we conducted before actually designing the system, we looked into a few specific problems that individuals with visual and motor impairments come across when they use the systems. And we looked at the two groups separately actually, and we found out that there are a few challenging things about using the current email systems, such as for motor impaired individuals, clicking on specific places on the screen is very difficult. There's also clicking on small areas on the screen. Typing is difficult, scrolling up and down to find specific emails. Tapping on the screen is difficult. So basically anything that has to do with hand movement or arm movement is very challenging for people with motor impairments. Now for visually impaired individuals, reading the content is difficult oftentimes. Following written or visual instructions, understanding color schemes, typing, pressing on reading buttons, reading the important emails, as well as navigating to certain places on the screen is very difficult. It is also very difficult for both groups to follow commands like button commands such as Control-Alt-Delete. Sometimes email systems do like to combine those type of button commands with screen actions. Now let's look at our report to see what we have next. Next, we looked at a few primary email functionalities and secondary email functionalities that our new email system that we're designing would have. Some of our primary email functionalities would be composing new emails, receiving emails, opening, reading, sending emails, deleting emails. So basically anything that has to do with an email, because we're primarily concerned with the emails. Those would be our primary email functionalities. And then our secondary email functionalities that are necessary would be filtering emails, searching for emails, settings, setting up the displays, and blocking at some email addresses. After we defined those, we also looked and thought about what would be a good requirement for a good email system for disabled users, and we came up with this big list. We found out that color schemes are basically very useless in email systems for visually impaired people, since they do not see the colors. So relying on colors would be a very wrong move here. So we decided to omit colors from our future system. Bigger buttons would allow for both groups to click on bigger areas, because typically they're challenged to be clicking on very small buttons. Tying specific mouse clicks to certain actions. So this is something that we found was interesting in one of our research papers. This will actually benefit both groups as well, because when we are composing or reading an email, we typically know where to click. However, those individuals who are disabled don't necessarily know where things are located on the screen. Therefore, a certain action would be a good tip for them. So for example, we would be tying a left click to a compose new email, for example. Next, we have a system that can track eye movement. This we did not actually implement in our current prototype, because the technology that is doing that can do this currently is very challenging, because it can confuse a few eye movements for different things. So this was very hard to implement, but it is a very interesting finding. This will benefit motor impaired individuals who cannot use arms or hands completely. Next, we looked at the option to connect voice commands. This will benefit both as well, and since you do not need to use your hands at all here, you can just command the system to do what you want. And then the last that we have is option to enable sound notifications. So this will actually help with error prevention, because after each action performed will be assigned a certain sound, and this way it will alert the users of a certain action that has been performed. So this is a very handy feature as well. All right, now let's move forward to our designs. So here are our designs. If you notice, we have a big microphone here on the screen that says, say, activate voice commands, to activate voice commands for the system. As I already discussed this a little bit, we have a voice command system, and we also have a voice assistant system. The difference between those two is that a voice command system will only accept commands from the user, and the voice assistant system will actually talk to and respond to the user and will help answer the questions that they have. But the problem with that is that we found out that most users dislike having a very persistent system that would send a lot of push notifications or a lot of noises. Therefore, this is an optional command here. Let's sign in. Now you'll probably notice that the buttons on the screen are bigger, significantly bigger than the regular than on the regular email systems. And so we implemented that as well. We also have simplified the designs completely. Therefore, there isn't anything that there aren't a lot of options, and this email system will not need exploration. This will be very simple and self-explanatory for the users. We also have this little microphone, and it also explains what certain actions can be done to perform a certain screen action. For example, like you see here, left click to compose an email. Let's now move forward to our next page. Our next page is our inbox page. You'll see that it's very consistent, and it looks exactly like the previous page, and it will also use the same actions right here. All right, now you've seen our designs. After we were done with our designs, of course, we had to test our system and evaluate how good our system was or how usable it was. Therefore, we asked 3 individuals to test our system and then respond to our survey. And we designed a survey that had a few questions. The survey has 12 questions and 12 sections and about 10 to 12 questions asking to evaluate the system. After we asked those users to take the survey, we collected the results as well. After we collected the results, of course, we studied them and we figured out what were the main problems with our new design system, and we came up with those 3 major ones. We found out that our system does not provide visual feedback. We found out that there isn't an error prevention that is fully implemented. We have an error prevention that is implemented, but it's not very effective. We also found that sound feedback is not available in the prototype, as this prototype was just a mock-up. We were not able to connect that option on the prototype. And so after we found out all these problems, we actually looked into some of the solutions that could be implemented into the new designs. So we looked at the system feedback, the visual feedback, and we thought that visible system feedback should have been implemented in the design stage. However, it was not. So a visual pop-up when a user performs a certain action would be a solution in this case, and should be implemented in the new design phase. To accommodate the error prevention, we decided to use an undo button. Of course, now this will not prevent an error, but it will help to resolve the error that has occurred in a scenario where a user accidentally clicks or performs a certain action that they did not wish. They can undo by pressing that button. Of course, it does not help to prevent the error, but we have a voice assistant system that can help prevent the errors by asking the user if they're actually sure about completing a certain task. For example, if there is a very important task that has very high risk or when it's performed, for example, like deleting an email, our voice assistant will actually ask the user if they're sure about completing this certain task. The sound feedback is actually something that we thought about during the design process, but it was difficult to implement it in a visual mock-up design. Therefore, that will be implemented as well. And that is all we have for our project report. Thank you so much for your time.